in here for a couple of minutes. So you moved to Glastonbury.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that's where you were doing? I know you'd been there a couple of times. I know you went to the Goddess Conference, and one was not in Glastonbury, but one was in Glastonbury. And I know you were working with these young men too, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm doing some of my youth mentoring and doing my Sacred Union mentoring and doing my yeah. There's more stuff happening with the men. It's good news. I started a brother circle here.
All
Yeah,
right. Well,
it's happening. It's happening. Started
it's
it.
always
Go
it's
on.
al- it's always a deep dive with you. So let me go
Uh,
ahead and play the intro and allow people a minute, 19 seconds to come in,
yeah,
and then
stop asking me questions. Ask me them when we were fucking in there. I'm not going to telling you anything else.
I've missed you.
I
Oh God.
I know. I know. It's
Big,
been a
big,
while.
big, big heart expansion going on here. We're going to come back and talk to our beloved brother, beautiful, beloved, brave brother, Miguel Dean, in about 1 minute. We'll be right back. Well, we got the contemporary William Shakespeare with us from Glastonbury. We've only got one show so far scheduled for today, so I think this is going to be a good one. You said right before the intro, Miguel, and welcome back. You said there's been a lot going on for the masculine,
Mhm.
and you made a very kind of a scared laugh. Or was that me?
That was your perception, Todd. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Plenty going on with the masculine, I would say. I say that because it feels like stuff's really moving through in the last year. In the last year, I feel as if I've come to the end of my trauma journey, and it's kind of like really strange. It's like the ego, the mind's kind of going, all right, well now what? Now what do we do? But so what? The response to that is just to heed the call. Really, I heeded the call to come to Glastonbury and start a brothers circle, start a men's circle in Glastonbury. There's a lot of divine feminine and goddess energy and a lot of woman power and stuff here. But yeah, I just heard the call. There's a need for a bit more support, encouragement, brotherhood. So I started a brother circle, which has been happening every Wednesday in my place. I'm working more with doing more youth mentoring with more young men are coming through that are ready to really get their shit together. And a lot of young men that are in a really bad place, self-harm, suicidal stuff, and more men are coming through on my Sacred Union mentoring stuff. My one-to-one work with adults, where it was nearly always traumatized women that were coming to me to have a reasonably positive experience of being able to work with a man that they felt safe with. But there are more men showing up, kind of waking up sort of a bit all over the place and then lost, and a lot of wounded boys that are waking up at the minute, it seems.
Righto.
Absolutely.
Some of us speak from experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's an ongoing journey, isn't it? It's an ongoing journey. you know, we're born into traumatized parents. We're born to traumatized parents, you know, with oodles of generational trauma that they're carrying. We're born into a profoundly sick society. So, you know, it's kind of, yeah, you know, there we have the hero's journey, how to find ourselves, how to come back to the truth of who we are, you know, and just keep wading through and allowing all those layers of distortion and, you know, the false programming to just keep falling away. And yeah, life starts getting interesting. Life starts getting interesting when that falls away and the energy starts moving just more freely, more freely through us, you know. And I mean, Todd, I just feel really blessed and really grateful, you know, where I am. It's like finally at the end of so much trauma around woman and relationships, and you know, the death of my mother when I was a child, an abusive stepmother. It was just like such a massive journey, but I see it as the training ground, you know. We have to go through this stuff. It's the training ground so that I can now lead a men's circle. I'm ready, and it just feels totally aligned to be doing this work.
That's powerful.
Mm.
Wow. And you know, there's been obviously a lot of discussion about the relationship between the genders.
Mm-hmm.
For you, in this, you know, to get you to this point, did you have to bring your relationship with the masculine into equilibrium?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, how it seemed to be for me, and I'm seeing this with a lot of men, is that, you know, primarily there's this obsession and this focus on the mother wound. There's this real epidemic of, you know, because our fathers weren't able to be emotionally present for their wives, for their partners, then the women turn to their boys, to their sons for emotional support and as crutches and so on. So there's this real pattern of, you know, boys that are enmeshed with their mothers. And so there's so much energy and there's so much trauma around that, and this obsession with being wanting to be close to woman, but at the same time being really angry and terrified of being close. You know, and I had my own version of that. But then, I mean, what I'm noticing is that, you know, as I came through the end of this whole mother wound stuff, I was only then really that I was able to start putting really focusing my energy on being with my brothers and being with other men. I mean, you know, the father wound was sort of healing all along, but I can really see there's such an obsession with, because not having your needs met when you're a child, you know, from your mom, you're always looking for your mom in every relationship. And until you internalize that and make peace and grow and develop your inner father and your inner mother, then there's no room, you know, there's no room for the next stage. But the crazy thing is that once you do start connecting with your brothers and start trusting with the masculine and build that masculine template within yourself, speaking your truth, being in integrity, being honest, you know, embodying that role, the true role of the sacred masculine, which is to be a protector of the divine feminine, of the planet, of the women, of the children, of the creatures. You know, we can finally get to that place, but only once it seems in my story, you know, only once we've made real significant progress with, I don't need a mummy anymore. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's such a big thing. It's such an epidemic across the whole world, eh?
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question is because, of course, we've done a lot of shows together and it's been a while. But one of the things about you, because I remember the energy of your story, of your experience, and you pretty much laid things out on the line publicly. I mean, you talked about your, I would call it, maybe not for lack of a better word, struggle with the feminine energy, and you were very honest about it.
Mm.
But the reason I asked the question is because I can relate to that very much, especially the last 5 years. Um, but toward the end of this transformation that I'm seeing in you and knowing in myself and seeing in some of these brothers out there right now,
Mm.
um, toward the end of it, because of the journey and the evolvement of the relationship between what you're describing, you know, the son and the mother, I then was able to face the masculine, right? And I think that's what you're saying. So it's kind of come at the tail end here, like almost like it's a good sign. It's a good sign for men if they start to be able to find that space that they've found with that feminine, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's almost, it often seems to be the feminine, doesn't it, that leads the way. And it seems that, yeah, there just had to be a certain amount of progress because, because women are just as, involved in this enmeshment as the men. So what I'm finding with some of the women that I'm working with is that they desperately want their men to be men, but there's so often there's this pattern of the woman mothering, the man, man slash boy, and woman wants man to be in his power, but at the same time there's a load of fear about letting go of control because woman's got used to being the mothering role, and so there is a lack of trust of the masculine, obviously. So it's this real delicate dance of, one has to rise a little bit, and then the other can rise a little bit, and then the other can catch up, and then the other can move. It seems to be a bit of a dance like that going on, Todd. But it's happening. The key thing is it is happening.
Yeah, you said a lot, but and there's almost like a dual paradox, when I listen to what you're saying, because and I guess I would break it down to one thing, and that would be that the divine feminine in both is rising. Now, how that happens and how you explain that, I'll leave that up to you and other people. But it definitely, because if you think about it, like what you're doing, that's a pretty powerful thing. Like I've not experienced that, being in a room full of men that are, at this time and space, in this moment. That must be a very powerful thing, because I look at this this equalization or this equilibrium of masculine to masculine from my own vantage point over the last, the last few years, and how it appeared just maybe even a few months ago, maybe a year ago, but it went very fast. And what I pick up from you is like being in a space where that feminine energy is allowed to come through, raw, and everybody's raw, and they're all men.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I mean, how long have you been doing that, and what's some of the standouts?
I started sowing the seeds as soon as I got to Glastonbury, just letting people know, and it's all just been done through word of mouth, 'cause it was actually illegal, you know what I mean? Because, you're not supposed to be socially distancing, we're not supposed to be gathering, but, I would say that's one of the traits of the sacred masculine, is that he follows his own rules and he follows his own inner compass, not those imposed on us, by those that don't know fuck all. But I guess it's been sort of like, happening for about 6-7 months now, and it's just deepening and deepening. And I tell you, Todd, it's so beautiful. I mean, the men are smudged as they come in. It's held as a ceremony. I have a sacred divine union talking stick that is representative of the masculine and the feminine. And I mean, what happens is, there's a bit of an introduction and a bit of opening of ceremony, but essentially whoever's ready takes the talking stick, and then it's passed around one at a time. So, if there are 10 men in the circle, which is a good number of how many men usually show up, then 9/10 of the time you are sitting listening. So you are holding space for your brothers. You are in the feminine energy of receptivity and listening. The majority of the circle is about the feminine. Right. And that, and I stress this to the men, repeatedly. It's not just about that 10 minutes or 2 rounds when you get to speak. The power of it is in how, it's meditation practice. Can you sit and just witness your brother and with an open heart and just hold space? And when your mind wanders off into judgment or comparison, just bring it back. And by the end of the circle, they last about 2 hours. The energy in the room is always just so exquisite that, quite often we say, let's just sit in this energy, because, the shares are vulnerable, they're real, They're just men, you know, sharing what's happening in their life, right, you know, for them right now. And it's beautiful. One of the most beautiful things is to see the young men growing. There are some young men in their 20s that are coming regularly now, and just watching them, you know, I sit and I watch them listening and soaking up what some of the older men are talking about, and it's just so simple, Todd, and yet it is so beautiful. And I'm witnessing the young men transforming and shifting and growing really quickly through the sitting in that circle of feminine energy. What's going on, Todd?
God damn, fucker. Making me
Yeah,
cry.
it's thank you. Thank you. I feel you. That you're tuned in. You're tuned in, spot on. It's a sacred, beautiful thing, Todd. And it's, you know, the crazy thing is, there's a whole story of how I came to be here in Glastonbury, and how I would say that the Lady of Avalon, the goddess, opened the doors for me, made it so easy, gave me this beautiful sacred space to live in that was lived in before by a divine brother who was also walking the path of the sacred masculine, but he died and he's buried at the foot of the Tor. And it's like he just handed the baton to me and said, take over the work. So when we're sat here, this brother circle, we're right on the high street, right in the middle of Glastonbury, and the energy that is created in the circle, you know, this vortex, when we close the circle, we always send out our prayers and blessings. So that masculine circle is sitting every Wednesday night, and that energy is going out from the heart chakra of the world out across, you know, into infinity. And you know, I'm not really sensitive to energy particularly, and woo stuff. I'm pretty grounded, but you know, I would say I'm clairsentient. I just fucking know stuff, and I know something big is going on. Something big is happening with this little brother's circle.
Fucking A, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Cut it out. So I had this. Have you ever heard the? Because I don't know any other way to ask you or say this or whatever. Have you ever heard of the story, the parable of the prodigal son? The prodigal son.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this just popped in as you're telling me all this, and I'm, you know, whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for those that don't know, it's the story of a father who has two sons, and one of them is basically does everything he's supposed to do, right?
Mm.
And the other one, you know, is a hellraiser, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's in the Holy Land, and he's out in India smoking opium in opium dens with concubines, right? And then he ends up coming back with nothing, broken, having exhausted all avenues of fulfillment until he found himself, right? And when I first read it, I thought that's my hero, right? And then this last few months that you're talking about, as the story continues, the father gives his stock to the wayward son, and the good son says, "What's going on here, man?"
Mm.
And so I just happened to be reintroduced to this story in the last month or so, and I realized that it was the father is both sons, right? I mean, he's the good and he's the wayward, and you come to the center. And when you said what you were saying, because I knew all along that in the distorted masculine, there was a power and a strength that was built to protect her, that had gotten damaged or whatever, but it was there. And in losing all of that old masculine, losing that wayward son, right, going to the purity of the other one, I think this is the space I would describe is understanding, like you said, that energy leads in myself. It's not so much what's going on out there. It leads in myself. It's what's leading me now and brought me to this place where that's what I am doing. I'm perpetuating and protecting the feminine energy within myself and therefore to the whole. And that powers that sacred sexuality, that power, that pure, raw, wild, real shit that we haven't even begun to understand what it is, our contribution. So it's an amazing thing to feel the energy of what you're doing. And I really appreciate you coming and talking about it. Obviously, it was supposed to be. Has there been? I mean, like with the men you're meeting with. I mean, what are you seeing with them? I mean, is it 2, 3, 4, 5 people? Numbers don't matter, but I mean, what's coming out of it? What's the third energy, where two or more gather, that's coming out of it? Are you seeing an expansion of your intentions and hopes and dreams?
Yeah. It feels like a seed, the men's circle feels like a seed, and it also feels like the sort of central hub of a wheel. And so, it's my offering that I've said every Wednesday I will be there. I open my doors and the men can come in. These are men, sometimes men that are living on the street. It's a massive, broad range of men, that everybody is welcome. It gets a bit complicated when we've got non-binary people wanting to attend, but that's another story. We won't go into that one. You think it'd be quite straightforward, deciding who comes to a men's circle, but in this day and age, everything's interesting. So it's usually sort of between 8, 10 men. And the third energy, Todd, what came to mind straight away is brotherhood.
Yeah.
Is building the trust, so the men are starting to sort of, I don't. My offering is those 3 hours each week, and I'm saying to the other young men and the men, you lead other projects, get other stuff going. So they're starting to collaborate. They're starting to work together. They're starting to do little projects. We've got a plan for a, Glastonbury Brothers Circle to have a little weekend residential. But there's a support network, and when one of the brothers, falls out or ends a relationship, that we're all there, to speak into a circle of men and to share, with tears in your eyes or whatever, or anger in your voice, to share that and to be real, in that space. It's just, it's just really beautiful. It's really weird, Todd, because I didn't know what I was missing. It's like so often in the world, where are the points of reference to go, oh, must be what it feels like to be in brotherhood and to be really connected to other men. Where the fuck does that happen? So nobody knows how beautiful. Nobody knows how beautiful it is, So it's almost beyond words, As I say, at the end, the energy is so beautiful. We stand, we all put our arms. We have a sort of like a circular hug, and then we do 3 ohms, and it is just so beautiful. It is so beautiful. And then we just look around the circle and I encourage the men. I say, look around the circle, look into the eyes of the other reflections of yourself, because that's all it is. We're all living different versions of the same story. Let's be there for each other. All this stuff about men are competition and dog eat dog, and you can't trust your brother, and they'll nick your woman, and all this sort of stuff. These father wounds that we've inherited because our fathers weren't able to be there. That's what's being healed, and that's what's being transformed. And it may be just 10 men, but you and I know it's not about numbers, and you can't measure stuff in the same way anymore,
That's right. Oh, you'll have 12 before too long. They'll be you and 12 apart. No, I'm messing with you. Yeah, you're right. You're right, because I think we've all had what we thought was, or maybe it was the most powerful frequency of fraternity and fellowship and brotherhood we have experienced in our past, was usually through some sort of athletics, some sort of competition. It could be, you both played chess or whatever, but there was always that element of competition and alpha energy. I remember talking to you 2 years ago and saying, hey, women can walk into a big dressing room, like a locker room in a physical fitness place, and they can say, I got a problem, and women that they know and don't know, in many cases, would come to listen and
Yeah.
exhibit what you were talking about earlier. And I
Yeah.
remember telling you a couple of years ago, yeah, but what if you're a man and you walk into a locker room and say, man, I'm having problems with my girl. Everyone looks at you like you're a dumbass. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this is the leap. I mean, and I knew you as you knew me 2 years ago. We evolved a lot together. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And it's amazing to see transformation, in yourself and in others.
Mm.
And I'm just curious as to what were the key, what's the key, or what's been the keys or the standouts or the lessons in your transformation to this point over the last couple of years.
Well, I guess, I mean, let me hold the book up. You remember this one?
Yeah.
So, that story in there of the relationship with this amazing woman that, that was kind of like the final piece of the jigsaw in the completion of my mother wound. So, that was where I ended the whole thing in the end and said, no, I would rather be with myself. I don't need a mummy. I don't need a woman in my life. I'm good. I'm good. I will honor myself, and I will, I don't choose to be treated in this way anymore. I'm not settling for scraps from the table. So that was a really big part of it. And, and as I say, because there wasn't this kind of compulsive addiction, always looking for woman and always looking to suckle feminine energy and so on. I mean, when I ended the relationship, with my twin flame, I chose to spend 3 months what I call non-suckling, because in the past I would end a relationship with a woman and I would be like, right, I'm not getting straight into another relationship, but I'd be like, chatting to women and flirting and connecting with all my female friends because I was wanting some female energy. I was still trying to grab externally, the beauty of the feminine. And it was like, I kind of said, no, I'm going cold turkey. I'm just going to access the feminine energy through me, from the earth, from the music, from the way that I live my life. I'm going to be my own mother. So that was a really big part of it, Todd. And the other really big bit, I guess, is just this growing awareness, which has been accentuated here in Glastonbury, of how men are suffering and how men are struggling. The numbers of the suicide rates, the mental health rates, and I just think it's just totally inexcusable. There are two men who've been to the brother circle. One, a lot of men just show up a few times and check it out, sort of thing. It's not for every man, because a lot of them are terrified and it's too vulnerable and it's too raw and too real, and they can't wait to get out of the room. But there are two men who have attended the circle. One hung himself a couple of months ago in a mental hospital, and the other one has been sectioned in a mental hospital. So, when brothers and men and you see them, and another brother who was out on the streets in Glastonbury all the time, he overdosed just a couple of weeks ago. So it's just in your face, when you're seeing how wounded men are, and you're constantly faced with this information. It's like, I've got to do something. I need to do something, and I now have the energy to do that. It's like I say, my energy isn't taken up in my trauma journey anymore. My kids are done, as in they're grown up. They're 21, they're 25, they're doing their own thing. I'm obviously still in their life, but for the most part, they're doing their thing. So now I can really sort of turn up switch up a gear, because I'm not immersed in this mother trauma stuff, and I'm not immersed in being a father, and I'm not immersed in being in my business either, because when I came to Glastonbury, I said, that's it, I'm done with all this patriarchal do. I'm going to follow my bliss. I'm just going to do what feels in alignment, and as an experiment. And this year, the lockdown year, has been, I mean, financially the most abundant year since I've been working for myself, and on all other levels, just abundant in community, in love, in kindness, in comradeship, in magical experiences living in this land in Glastonbury. You know, I could go on and on. I could go on and on. And I can't remember what the fucking original question was, Todd, but I think I may have covered it somewhere.
It was in regard to your transformation. I mean, well, you talked about it. It was the mother wound, which you actually had said earlier, but
yeah.
There's so many to me, because of this facing the masculine as a masculine, you know, energy to energy versus the other, which was on the linear timeline and energetically, I think, the biggest part of this journey up to this point, because it's so fresh, this masculine to masculine thing. There's a lot of new stuff. Like, how does it feel? You know, what's changed? Like you're describing what you were describing in terms of this year of abundance. And you basically, to me, described the flow of the feminine with the construction aptitude of the masculine. So in other words, it's like, okay, I'm not going to do it the way I know it's supposed to be done. I'm going to just surrender to this feminine in me. And oh, wow, you know, things just kind of like fall into place. This is easy. You know, you can get, you know, you know what, get so much more done with so much less, you know, exertion of effort. But I don't know. It's just it's coming so fast. It's another one of the continuously addition of streams in our consciousness that we are conscious of, which is another, you know, part of this thing. I mean, but to drill down to the masculine experience right now in this time and space, this is where it's at. What you're talking about. This is what's happening. And I've heard quite a few people come on this show, especially in the last couple of months, and just, you know, not as a topic, but just in their stories. Like I remember a practitioner from, I know, just middle of last week, saying how she'd always had women as clients, and now it was all men. And several of these people use the same words, which was something like, man, there's a lot of masculine out there that are hurting. They're like bewildered, like they're lost. They're you know, they're being ripped to their core, right?
There are no, you know, nobody escapes, you know, the torture and the pain and the suffering of patriarchy, of what, you know, what's been created on this planet, and you know, and that's part of it, is letting go of the, oh, it's, you know, men's fault, or it's women's fault, or it's just laying down all the weapons. And it's like everybody has been so fucked over by the system. And yeah, you know, it has to change. It is changing. We know it's changing. We know that massive stuff is going on at the moment. But you know, there's a young man that I've been working with for a little while, and you know, he was you know, severely suicidal and self-harming, and just like in so much pain from his mother enmeshment stuff. And you know, when you're working with somebody and you don't know whether they're going to show up for the call next week, because you don't know whether they're still going to be alive, it just really brings it home. Like, you know, it really brings it home. And I know, you know, I mean, let's say this guy's called Paul. There are millions of Pauls out there. You know, there are millions of Pauls. And it's time. It's time to, you know, it's the time for the awakening of the horned god. You know, that's one of the strands that's really coming through, that primal masculine energy, that, you know, the power, the warrior. Man has been domesticated. He has been, you know, he's had his balls chopped. He's been, you know, reduced to some pathetic, destructive, selfish, childish creature. And that is not who man is. Man is a king, and when man is in his sovereignty and his power, he is an incredibly beautiful being, you know, and yet the truth of who we are is so far removed from the, you know, the image, the model that we're supposed to, you know, to look up to.
Fucking A, bro. Took the words right out of my mouth. And I'd have to say they've only been fresh in my mind for like less than 10 days.
Yeah. It's that, it
Um,
really is that time. It really is that time. And I mean, I'm feeling it. I'm exploring, experimenting with plant medicine a little bit more these days, you know,
mm,
psychedelics and stuff. And I'm having some really interesting experiences, and it's helping me to access that horned god energy that comes through. I mean, you know, I would say that psilocybin mushrooms are just excellent for undomesticating one. You know,
yeah.
it's like you take a good dose, and who you really are starts coming through, like, you know what I mean, and it's interesting.
Yes. Whether it's the horned, whatever you said, or whatever image that is for, for a man, uh,
Hmm.
that's what I was talking about. Like in the distorted masculine,
Yeah.
you were in touch with that. A lot of, we might think when we talk about being in touch with our purity, we were a little kid and we were pure and we were innocent. This is that type of baseline uh, soul characteristic. So that's what I was saying. That to me, I think has caused a lot of angst for men is having to give up this power,
Hmm.
and you can't step into the purity of that feral primordial beast in the
Hmm.
most beautiful way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't step into that without totally letting go of it
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
its distortion, and that
Yeah.
is having your fucking balls cut off.
Hmm.
And then the thing about assimilating with that primordial king, uh, you can't rush it. You can't use the energy that was effective in the old way. I'm a man. I'm going to build something. You know what I mean?
No, no,
Block
no.
by block, but you can't. And you can't do the whole rush, rush, rush. And you have to flow into it, allow it, embrace it, accept it, um, as you
Yeah.
do the feminine,
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
you do the sacred wisdom of the feminine. You
Hmm.
can't push
Hmm.
anything. There is no force, and I'm just stepping into this. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm less than 10 days, and
Yeah.
it's blowing my fucking mind.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I told Morgan 2 nights ago, this is the greatest moment of my life. Now it was obviously a shared experience, and there were other things happening, but
Mm.
they wouldn't have happened. They couldn't have happened
Yeah.
without a new level of um, shared frequency or whatever you want to call it.
It,
And
it it's the same as what I was saying about, you know, the brotherhood. There aren't any points of reference.
right,
You know, it's forgotten. It's been buried. It's been hidden. That, you know, the horned god. You know, all the associate. That's what the whole devil stuff is—a distortion of that primal energy. The horned god is a pure
that's
and
right.
beautiful and powerful energy. It is not evil. It may be from the darkness, but, you know, darkness is beautiful as well. You know, the darkness of the primordial feminine, the darkness of the primal masculine. That is beautiful. But, you know, where do we see that? Where do we see that modeled anywhere?
You don't.
It's not around. And so when that, you know, when you feel those screams coming through you, and you feel that energy and you feel that power, it's like, whoa, you know, what is this like, you know? And I can imagine that a lot of men, if you don't know what they're doing, could be really scared and freaked out, because, you know, the religious sort of programming around the devil and evil and all that stuff is strong. But men are, you know, it takes courage to be able to say, okay, and it takes a lot of preparation, yeah, for one's body to be ready to be a vehicle for that energy to come through. I mean, I'm aware, since I came to Glastonbury, the stuff in my body is just, you know, Kundalini weird stuff, and just non-stop kind of like really full-on stuff. And you know, I just kind of get out of the way and leave my body to get on with it, and know it's, you know, it's shifting and it's transforming and it's realigning and it's doing whatever it needs to do. But I know damn well, Todd, that it is preparing me in order for this primal energy to come through. There have been little explosions here and there, little tastes, but that has to come through, and you know, and there's something about that, you know, call me deluded, but there's something about the fact that I have been called to Glastonbury and I am holding the Brothers Circle, and this energy, when people come into my space, they always say, oh my God, it's such a safe, beautiful energy in this place. And that is the energy of the Horn God. That is the energy of the sacred masculine. It is a gentle strength.
Yeah, it's a fierce devotion. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's a it's a fierce devotion.
yeah.
You know, for all the visibility of the masculine, the struggle, and I'm talking what you're talking these last few months. There are a lot of signs, such as your experience and those around you, um, that we're making progress and very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I might add, because of our long tenure and apprenticeship with coming to terms with the feminine energy. So we have that wisdom and we have that momentum, and we're pushing fucking hard and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of evidence of that. Is it pretty? No. Is it ball busting in a different sense than the balls that got cut off to get us here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But it's just you and, you know, that aspect, I think that aspect of the universal that's pure masculine. So you could say it's like just you and the universe. I mean, there's no, doesn't matter who you meet with, who you talk to, what you post, what you say.
Mm-hmm.
This is the raw, the real. And you're right. There are, I would say this, there are immediate physical movements within your body. There are definitely energetic things happening in your body that have a physical relationship that maybe wasn't there before. There's major things happening internally, purging in many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So there is evidence that, you know, I don't know what you would call it, but like, you know, converting from carbon based to crystalline or whatever you want to call it, but something's happening.
Yeah, yeah, something's happening. It really is the, you know, it's a call. It's a call for the masculine to awaken. It's a call for the masculine to arise. You know, it's kind of like, you know, where are the warriors? Where are the men that are ready to stand up and say, I will fucking die for this cause?
Yeah.
You know, because I know that death. You know, I don't believe all the bullshit anymore. You know, death is the birth into everlasting life. It's nothing to fear. You know, we can call it, you know, our own Valhalla or whatever you want to call it. But that's a big part of this masculine work as well. What I guess the last 6 months, I've almost been a bit obsessed with death. There's this thing of really, you know, to be a warrior and to allow that energy through, you have to make your peace with death.
Yeah.
And you have to yeah, just be comfortable with that, because otherwise you're just living life, you know, busy, avoiding the reality that you know that you are mortal, and that you're not going to be here that long. So there's something about this, you know, because when there is no fear of death, then they have no power over us anymore. You know, that's, I mean, that's what's been going on with the whole coronavirus thing, isn't it? Fear, death. What if everybody was like, well, death doesn't exist and it's just the birth into everlasting life? That would, you know, there would be a hell of a lot less control, a lot less people taking vaccines, and a lot less people wandering around with nappies on their faces, you know?
Right on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's time. It's time, and it's happening with other brothers here. There's a beautiful brother of mine, an Indian guy who comes to Circle regularly, and he follows the path of the sacred masculine, and he took the sword of truth. He had a bit of this big sword, and he took it to Glastonbury Abbey, to the ruins of where King Arthur, King Arthur's ruins were laid. And he was doing a ceremony with the sword, and the police got called, and he ended up going to court and everything, and he was found guilty of having a weapon in a public place and all this stuff. But even that little story, it's a little metaphor of what is going on. Who are they to, the sword of truth has been taken from this sacred place, doing a sacred ceremony, you know, at Glastonbury Abbey, and it's now locked up in a police station. It kind of says it all, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's happening, like, you know, in the physical representation of what's happening, you're seeing the patriarchal get really loud with its methods, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And so it's kind of like what I was talking about before, like when the masculine gets past that 0 point and starts to connect with that primordial power, you know, that horn god, it can't use that force. And so this stuff is being accelerated and forced, but at the same time, this presence of the feminine, in which in the physical is now taking on some masculine folks, is it's almost like a resistant non-resistance, or a non-resistant resistance, meaning we are more powerful. This is our power.
Mm-hmm.
And even one of us in our power is greater than that. And it's kind of like you said, it's really throwing out the death card.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's a, you know, it's a total game changer, isn't it? You know, everything's different, and I would say that I'm growing a really beautiful relationship with death. You know, it's just it's I've had a couple of near-death experiences since we last spoke, and
Really?
you know, I think that they were, you know, I would recommend that everybody have a couple of near-death experiences, because it really makes you appreciate life, and everything becomes so much, you know, it's just, Todd, we are here for such a short time, you know, and it is so fragile and so precious and so sacred. And, you know, every little tiny thing, every the things that our bodies are doing, when I go out and I walk the land and I leave birdseed to feed the birds and so on, and the wild robins are coming now to eat from my hand because they recognize me and they know me. And it's like, that is just, it's just so beautiful, like, you know, just all those little tiny things. And it's almost like, you know, when you're moving around too fast and you're just busy, you know, programmed, plugged into the matrix, you miss the miracle of what it is to be alive.
Yeah.
It is such a gift, you know, and I know there is so much suffering going on at the moment, but the crazy paradox is that the deeper I drop into my heart, and the deeper the balance of the sacred union happens within me, the more I'm just totally in love with life and the beauty and the miracle of it. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, often just bursting into tears, just because you can't contain the absolute, you know, awe and magnificence of life. And yeah, it just blows you away, like, you know what I mean? So, you know, and for me, that's coming alive, you know, that's our natural state, to have our emotions so highly tuned, and to be able to feel, you know, have our hearts, instead of these tight closed buds, to be this open rose. It's life.
It's called getting your heart on.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to getting your heart on.
absolutely,
You
yeah.
know, I love the metaphor of what you were talking about, because as I'm watching the video of what your words, and so it's like this thing about the miracle, right? A miracle is motion. A miracle requires motion, and we've spent, not just men, but I mean as in our journeys, but I mean we're talking about men right now, seeking the miracle, right? And maybe that's the mother's tit, right? Like you were talking about earlier. But what you're talking about is really, and I know this sounds corny, but being the miracle. Like
Yeah,
I walk outside to the forest, I can find something now. I've been here since June of last year, and I'm always been connected to nature, but something's happened. My relationship has changed. I realize being in that space that I'm the miracle.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And so how does the miracle, you know, manifest the miraculous? By the miracles in motion. So you brought up something earlier, and so this is a pretty good segue, because I think it's related, and that is, what are you doing there? What am I doing? If everything's changed, let's just say in the last few months or even the last 10 days or 2 weeks, everything's changed. What is service? What does service mean to Todd? What does service mean to Miguel now, as opposed to before, whenever the last or whatever it is we're talking about is occurring, the conception of it, the early stages of it occurring. To me, it's all service. It's service to self. It's service to her. It's service to the collective. It's just I don't know. That's not even probably the right word, but maybe it's that fierce devotion. But do you feel like that's been that? Because listening to your story, it sounds like that's what happened to you. You said, "Hey, I was plugged in over here. I got called to go to Glass, and I get over there, and I got rid of this template I was using, and now I'm experiencing more abundance in a totally different approach."
And the service that you're talking about, it's like, it's not always about what you do, but where how you do what you do and where that doing arises from. And I think so often service, there is service that comes from a pretty narcissistic place, which is, I want to help other people because it's a distraction from my own stuff, and and it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel worthy, and I get some external validation because deep down I don't love myself, and I don't feel I'm worth very much. So when you're serving from a place of, and I think there's always going to be an aspect of that, I mean, I would say I love service because it brings me into alignment. That's my thing. Service brings us into alignment because we are love and truth, and we are here to serve each other and support each other. We are communal beings, we are tribal creatures, and we're supposed to be there for each other. So the service just becomes a deeper sort of devotion, a devotion, and it's coming from a kind of like a clearer, increasingly sort of cleaner, purer, healthier place, rather than there being so much distortion in there.
Yeah.
And and I would say that the practice becomes, it's simple. I see the young men with all their different practices and yoga practices and breath work and and plant medicine and whatever, and that's all part of the journey. But for me, where I've got to, it's all just got so simplified down to my service. My practice is to be pure of heart, and so that my mind, my thoughts, my words, and my actions are all in alignment with love and truth to the best of my ability in each moment that I am awake in every day. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Yes. Let me just take that last part in. That was a good roll. I'm gonna have to cut that out, put it out on a little blurb. Yeah. And it's like what you're saying is the old chop wood, carry water thing. But one of the things that I'm trying to explain or trying to connect to or whatever, verbalize, is it's not only that, but it's a new version. It's like you're chopping wood and carrying water at the same time, and you can do it. It's almost like the first time you ride a bike and you take off by yourself. Or could you imagine the first time you consciously fly?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's something to be said.
Yeah.
I just see the creativity thing with the alignment of the masculine energy, both to the feminine and to the masculine, having a huge, just a huge impact. I guess it's divine union in motion from the constructor's eyes versus the mother energy, the dream, right?
Yeah. And the chop wood, carry water, it becomes, it was just like, I was just chopping wood and carrying water, and I wasn't present. Now it's one of the most beautiful things is to chop wood and carry water.
Right.
Things just get so simple, and that's my life, Todd. I do one-to-one sessions, loads of one-to-one sessions. And if I'm not doing that, I'm walking the land, I'm out feeding the birds. I just so simple, or I'm hanging out with brothers, just chatting, or just taking it easy. It's simple, but because now that I can fully embody my body and be fully present, and and how things have just shifted and transformed, everything just becomes so sacred and so beautiful. Having a shower is a water ceremony. Every time I have something to eat, it's a blessing from the mother. It's yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange because in this year where the whole masculine energy has just been so closed down, and it's been like, come, lock down, stop doing, start being, and stop so much less of the action and less of the busyness. All this stuff seems to be, there's no coincidence that is, that's happening at the moment, and that there is this surge and this awakening of the masculine energy.
Yeah, no doubt at all. And it's interesting too, because, I've observed this in just the work I'm doing and just my own life. And of course, being with Morgan, and is this, again, the big part of it. Shit, I mean, if we look at, say, 2012 to today, how much of this transformation could you say, stay with me, has been the feminine stepping into its power? So we kind of like hit this point, and I think what we're talking about is these last few months, not only was the distorted masculine, as a result of that illumination, had the spotlight on them, but we're starting to come out the other side, maybe. And that primordial link, that power that you're talking about, that pureness, that, I mean, you describe it perfectly, is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see the feminine transformation or step into its power in individuals, primarily women, but also men, that was interesting, right? This is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But now to see the true pure masculine power within the individuals, first the men, because that would be more obvious, but also in our collective experience, in our collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this transformation, and whatever the hell this thing is, this coronation, whatever it is. I mean, this is divine union, evidence of divine union with an impact and influence on the evolution of the collective.
Yeah.
And you mentioned seeds earlier. These are the seeds starting to sprout.
Yeah. I feel that, Todd. Yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you. There's nothing special or fancy about me. So if it's happening in me,
Mm-hmm.
then it's happening in other brothers out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Experiencing it as well. I'm not online very much anymore. Once I came to Glastonbury, I realised I wanted community. I wanted real people, and that's what I'm building, and that's what's happening here. That Glastonbury's brilliant for that. So I don't know too much about on the big picture what's going out there, what's happening out there in the world, but I don't need to. I don't need to. I just need to stay focused on doing what I know that I need to do, and the path unfolds. As I put my feet down. I don't need to know. I have no plans. I have no concept of the future. Just as it feels as if my story and the whole trauma thing feels like a story that's just kind of like the storybook's closed, and it's like that's done. It's like my publisher asked me if I would write a short story for a collection book that they're doing, and I had to say no. I can't identify with my story anymore. It's like I'm not dragging that stuff up. That's not who I am. Yeah, it is who I am on what level, who I was, but I choose to live from a soul perspective, from the big picture, and not from this little ego human, scared sort of like I'm going to die, in another few years or 40 years or whatever. To live from that place and to start living from the sacred, I guess.
Powerful, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting, and of course, the multidimensionality, the third eye, the sensitivities. I think this is another part of the expansion,
Yeah.
and it's one of the gifts of doing this show because it's been quite an evolution in that regard. But as I'm listening to you speak, I'm seeing this compelling image. So you have like a woman who's pregnant, full term,
Mm-hmm.
and she has her arms, wrapped around her womb, and and the roundness, the belly is the earth, right? So this is Mother Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
she's holding the earth, right? Now, uh, you remember like Atlas, how Atlas carried the world on his back. So then
Mm-hmm.
I picture, or I saw, I'm not making this up, this is what I've shown. I'm seeing Atlas, kneel down, one knee on the ground, one knee kneel, holding that earth on his back, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, the message is, it is a oneness, it's a divine union. That is that what is in that womb, what is contained within that womb to be birthed, is the third energy. It is the golden child. It is the creation of the reunification of masculine and feminine. He knows that he can get up
Mm-hmm.
and the earth won't fall. She knows she can walk away and he will hold it up. So this is to me an image of maybe it's an anchor. I don't know, but I mean, obviously, metaphorically, literally, to me, it's like we've hit a territory where, at a minimum, the potential is there. It's in the field of our potential. It's doable. We can see it. We can touch it. We can make this. We can do this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we are doing it. Right? We are doing it.
Yeah. It's happening. It's happening. You the more that the more that a man or a woman, can live their life guided by their internal compass, by their alignment with with their mind, their heart, their gut, all in alignment, and know what is right, and what is. I don't even like the word right because it still comes back to duality.
Mm-hmm.
To know what is in alignment, then when we can feel that, then we're in our power, and then it kind of feels a little bit for me, it's kind of like when you're doing the divine work, you're taken care of, everything just flows,
Sure.
and everything opens and everything happens just as it's meant to. And it's really worth mentioning that this masculine energy is really happening in the women as well.
Yeah.
That all the women that I'm working with one to one, that it's nearly always focused on their masculine template, on their
Yeah.
father wounds, on the abuse that they've experienced from men, and the disrespect and the violation from man. So the women, there's a real, really seeing the warrior in the women as well, that are like, yeah, it's like, no more. I'm getting my shit together. I'm doing this stuff. I'm not being, this. Because I mean, loosely speaking, the masculine is kind of like the framework, the structure, the survival stuff, the putting food on the table, the roof over your head. And once you've got that stuff sorted, then the feminine beauty and the magic of being alive, then there's space for all that.
Yeah.
But what patriarchy does is it's just keep doing the masculine, more. You need to do. You need to get this. You need to get that, rather than and trying to get it from the outside, rather than access it internally, to find who we are internally.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is, and none of this to me should be taken lightly, what we've talked about.
Hmm.
But I used to tell myself and my friends years ago, after I first woke up, first myself, get over the wow. Like, so to me, the reality, the bottom line is, this is landed. It's if you want to put it in this perspective, it's an illumination. It's illuminating all the bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
And all I got to do is look at the mainstream media, look at headlines, look at pictures, and you're just going, "This is a joke. It is an illusion," and you do laugh.
Yeah.
But in the um, in the spirit of the moment of everyone collective, everyone, people, whatever your perspective is of who's awake and not awake,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a ticking time bomb. People are waking up every single day in their own way because the
Mm-hmm.
bullshit is becoming louder and louder.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've had a magnifying glass on. We're now looking through a telescope, and we're looking through a telescope. The ethers are multidimensionality. We're now looking and embodying and being that, the magnitude of a microscope. So
Yeah.
there's no doubt this is exciting. It's very exciting to me. There's a lot of people that are stepping into their missions in a pure alignment, stuff they've been working on for years and years and years. I mean, Morgan and I were talking about it this morning, like in her own account and other people, that all this work they've done, it's all coming to fruition. Many things are coming into fruition
Mm-hmm.
with even a small, minuscule percentage of the whole having reached and starting to sustain divine union within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you just had 1% of the world, we're
Yeah.
talking about a whole different spectrum of energy here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say the 99%, and theoretically, if that's the case, they're in the visible light spectrum. They're in a limited audio
Yeah.
sensitivity overall, environment. We're not. And that's a powerful, powerful paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think there's hard evidence that it's occurred 2020. Thank you very much for everything that you gave us. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely happening, and it seems that the challenge to a large extent, is to keep our vibration high,
yeah,
and but not from a place of spiritual bypassing and so on. It's I mean, yeah, tears are quite a regular thing for me, and tears of joy, and also tears of grief.
yeah.
Because it is this how to walk and live this paradox of this life is so sacred and so beautiful, and there is such exquisite moments, of connection and intimacy and with nature or with each other, or naked in bed with your beloved, or whatever. And at the same time, there is such suffering and pain and distortion and darkness. And to be able to walk with both of those, to carry them both, is yeah, it's an interesting,
Hmm.
journey, but it seems to be what is asked of us, because it transcends this whole duality thing. If we can live the paradox and we can be at peace with that, then
Hmm.
something big shifts.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a perceptual, multi-dimensional experience too. Because as we have these other streams, and I don't know how other people experience it, but to me, there's more streams that I'm available to. It's like I'm watching 10 TV screens, and I'm conscious of every storyline. I may
Yeah,
not be, how you'll listen to something or watch something and you're cooking or something. I may not be like 100% focused, but I'm there.
yeah, yeah,
But at the
yeah,
same time, it's also the dynamic of I'm seeing through 10 different sets of eyes,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So if I look at the all of it and I say, wow, so the human hybrid soul species has a uniqueness of emotion in terms of of the universal family. The emotions have been hijacked, whatever you want to call it. It's been
Hmm.
sustenance because it's a powerful, powerful, powerful energy, very unique to in the universal family.
Hmm.
So now we're learning that the alchemy is to simply run everything into our hearts. The things that make us laugh, the things that make us cry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
And
beautiful,
and
Todd.
so that, I mean, so that is what we're doing here. And I
Hmm.
think of what you're saying because it's so profound. The sacredness is this. That's it.
Hmm.
We can
Yeah.
talk about it and all that, whatever. But whatever we came in here with and whatever we do from the point of transition, we already have it. It's not going anywhere. But what
Yeah.
we have right this moment,
Mm.
we'll never have again. So it's like, have you ever had a dream? Or you had a near death. So,
Hmm.
out of body, near death, or even some lucid dreams. And you're in this space that is pure love, pure peace. And the next thing you know, you wake up
Mm.
and you literally feel it, right? You know what I mean? You're like, oh my God, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
That's what I think to me captures what you're saying about the sacredness is is that it's is knowing that before we wake up. And
Yeah.
there's 111 minutes into the show with 101 people. So there's got to be something going on. I'm just kidding.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
is. It's just all so sacred, and we can just miss it. With the whole new age thing and the whole alternative thing, you can still miss it. It's like it just becomes another whole ego trip.
Hmm.
It's, let's just get back to real simple stuff, like real simple stuff, because yeah, we just overcomplicate stuff. We just overcomplicate. It's simple. Let go of the trauma. That is such a key thing. Nothing happens while we're still full of layers of trauma. That is
Yeah.
what conceals, and that is, I see them as like boulders that are blocking the flow of source energy through us. So that's why there's this constant letting go, removing all the blockage stuff, and then source energy just comes through us, and
Yeah.
we just start remembering who we are. For quite a while I haven't read, or I don't research. My practice is to allow my mind to relax. I don't use my mind. My practice is whatever I need to know just comes through downloads when I'm on the land, or that just a little piece of information will just come at just the right moment. I don't need to go looking for any knowledge, because that becomes a distraction. I'm not here witnessing the sacred if I'm in my head thinking about that I need to know something else. I don't need to know anything. I don't
Mm-mm.
need to know anything. All I need to do is be fully here in my body, and everything happens just beautifully without me having to do anything. I can just totally let go of control and allow her to guide me,
Yeah.
allow it to unfold in front of me.
That's right.
But but we don't see it if we're in our heads, and or we've got these ideas that it's supposed to be like this, or this is where I'm going next. I don't know anything. All I know is that at the moment I've been asked to be here, hold men's circle, and whoever shows up, I will serve them as best I can, and that is enough. That my life is beautiful in that. Yeah, there are challenges. Yeah, sometimes it's really painful. Sometimes it breaks my heart when I'm working with somebody that is just so lost and in so much pain. And all I see all the time now is everybody's pain is a result of this distorted, fucked up system. It's like I have a friend who's been incarcerated. She's in sort of mental hospital, part of the prison, because she murdered her mother. And people say, how can you support that woman? And I'm like, because it's not her fault. She's innocent. It was the result of the system, of the trauma of her childhood, of her life, of the psychosis that she was going through. Everything comes back to the system, to the fact that we are living in a way that is totally out of alignment with the truth of who we are.
That's right. That's why, not that I'm stuck on any narrative because I'm not, especially the stuff that comes out from the external, but this, like one of these theories or whatever that all these people are arrested and taken to military tribunals and hung.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see that happen. Not because of people getting their due, but because I think it would energetically put us on the precipice of an opportunity to find real compassion and have the type of embodied understanding and actualization, living it, walking the talk of what we all know. Because
Yeah.
you're right, there are no victims, therefore there are no perpetrators. So sooner or later, every one of those narratives will fall.
The narratives are just part of the old construct. It's still duality. It's still us and them. There is no narrative. There's just this moment. There's just each sacred moment as it arises, and
True.
and just it's just it's like there are so many miracles that we don't, we don't witness them. We take them for granted. The sacredness is hidden in plain sight. It's like I was just thinking the other day. We use the word growing. The plants are growing. The flowers are growing. What if we change the word growing for the plants are, constantly arising from beyond the veil and being manifest into this dimension. This matter, each cell that arises from nothing and just arrives here. It's like, that's a bit more cosmic and that's a bit more interesting than it's growing, because that's the reality. Constantly, the divine is materializing, manifesting here from the invisible.
That's right.
Isn't that enough to just go, wow? If you could begin to get your head around that, you know what I mean? That's enough to just be like, whoa, just reverence for, for the divine creator and whatever the fuck is going on here.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier was the heart. What the uniqueness of it. Apparently, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is huge. This is the heart energy, the emotion energy, which had been unconsciously roaming with reckless abandon, so to speak. People taking our power, other species taking our power. Now we're in this situation. What you just described is what we're arriving to, an understanding that you can set everything into an energetic observation, right? And you can just look at the energy of what you're talking about. So this is the code of God, right? And then you have the human part, which is this deep, deep, pure, primordial, real, organic, everything, this seed of the divine in this gift of the human emotion. And they're
Yeah.
coming together. I would call it like aligning your free will with universal will.
Yeah.
And that's not even, but this is I think it's something that if our heart, they have that image of the heart, the field of the heart, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
it's 8 feet, 10 feet in front of you and behind you, and so think about that. The how that expands when we are in our heart, when we are the I, in our I am soul frequency, as it, and then think about, you know, what, half a billion people, 100 million people in the world doing that, the energetic impact of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is moving at warp speed, as fast as it can. Because like you said, the body
Yeah.
has to prepare. The body has to be able to, and there is a truth to that.
Everything happens at either it's all sacred and it's all divinely orchestrated, or none of it is. This transition, what's going on in the world now, is divine as well. It's exactly as it's
Mhm.
meant to, and it's
Mhm.
going at exactly at the pace that it's meant to. People say, oh, it's going slow or it's going fast. Well, what are we measuring it with from a human perspective?
True.
Our life, it's what, a blink of an eye. It's our lives aren't very long when you compare them to eternity. You know what I mean? So
It's
maybe
true. Yeah.
this stuff is moving really quick, and And we don't need it. We don't need to even worry about that. That's back to the whole duality and stuff, because
That's right. Thank you for taking me out of that, and because I was just thank you.
yeah,
That's basically victimhood.
yeah,
It's a victim consciousness. It's even many things we've talked about in this. I love this. This has been a great program, but we're still speaking from victim consciousness.
hmm
When
yeah,
are we going to shut the door? And I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm just saying it's coming. We're actually going to shut the door. Anything behind us, including yesterday, is going to be, I don't know, like a marker, but nothing more than that.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
a just a marker. And even then, again, getting back to, because to me, what I feel like we're walking into is like dream state. And I don't
yeah,
mean that in a dreamy, puffy, fluffy pillow way. I mean that in like when you're in dream state, that the way your consciousness feels,
yeah, yeah.
it's fluid. You can feel the plasma. You can, it's a totally different. And I feel like that's what's happening to us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it feels like walking between worlds. Walking, it's kind of like it all increasingly seems like a movie, and there is less attachment. I have so much less attachment to this life and this dimension. Um, and I use the story sometimes, the metaphor. I like feeding the birds, and I used to have a bird table. But where I am in my flat, there's no garden, so I couldn't have a bird table. So, and I was a bit disappointed. I thought, no, I can still feed the birds. So the old masculine, the old me used to be, yeah, well, I'll feed the birds, but I need to see the birds eating the food, and I want to get that, satisfaction of seeing their prettiness and watching their antics, and I want them to fucking entertain me if I'm going to bother to feed them. But it's like it's shifted to I go out for a walk, and I just leave some bird seed on the fence posts and whatever, and I don't need to know. I don't need to sit and watch the birds enjoying it. I just need to know that I have done what feels right and what feels in alignment to me. I don't need to see the results of it. And I think we as humans and we as men, and again, that is the path of the sacred masculine. It's like, I don't need to see the results. I don't need external validation. I don't need people to say, oh, great, Miguel, look what you've achieved and look what you've done,
Mm-hmm.
the distance you've traveled. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. I just need to know the I'm filled up by just knowing I'm in alignment and I'm doing my best, and that what I do will impact on the children and the generations to come. It doesn't matter a toss whether I see the progress
Mm-hmm.
or where I see the growth, because that's not up to me. The whole linear thing and time, it's all happening exactly as it's meant to.
Yeah.
And who knows whether I mean, what happens? Everybody's like, oh, we're going to the golden age. We've got to have it all beautiful. But who's to say, everything? Who's to say that it doesn't move back into a dark thing again at some point? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
What are we rushing towards? To this pretty sweet where everything's going to be all fluffy and pink unicorns and stuff. It's like we haven't got a clue where we're heading. We can't begin to comprehend, with the limitations of these little minds of ours, the infinite different potentials and storylines that are happening now, simultaneously. Because we
Mm-hmm.
can't pick it up because
Pick your timeline.
yeah, yeah,
I'm sure. Uh, I downloaded a meme a couple of mornings ago. It was just like, the power is in the powerlessness.
yeah,
Like the let go of the control to be in control.
yeah,
There's something that is multidimensional about, um, what's happening, what happens, what we can do. I
mhm,
mean, it's just, yeah, it's futile. And I really feel like that, one of the things that will have, you think of the event. People talked about the event, and the universe blinks at us, and everybody changes, and and then you talk about, people say, well, the event happens over on a linear timeline over years and years and years, whatever. But I do think there would be strong, like collective evidence. You think of like spaceships landing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something like sound. like communication through sound, nonverbal. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, there's other examples too, but I really feel like that the patriarchal template that is characterized by too much talking and not enough listening
Mhm.
will go away in a loud way on the collective experience in terms of like go to the internet, go watch TV, whatever. And I think that's going to be happening. And I think that's what you were talking about earlier, where this new masculine's contribution to creativity and construction.
Mhm.
I mean, I think if I put it in like a metaphoric analogous type of way, it's the kind of energy that built the pyramids. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about nuts and bolts and hammers and you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
now this is quantum. This is divine union frequency that's going to be put into our from our personal expressions and collaborations and contributions. It's going to create things with different elements that have been locked down. So
Yep. Yep.
Judith Kuzel, you know Judith Kuzel from South Africa? She I play some of her videos on the remix, and she said a couple of months ago, "You're not going to recognize yourself in 3 months. You're not going to recognize yourself again in 6 months."
Yeah.
Now, I'm like, yeah, I get that. More now than I did when I first heard it. But
Mhm.
as within, without.
Yep. Yep.
So there's definitely going to be things, and it may not be sound, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's going to be things that are going to alter dramatically, just like things are altering dramatically within ourselves, and they would be such things as the influence of confidence and intuition and telepathy,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
not to mention many other things. I wanted to ask you too, and I want to make sure that we cover before we get out of here. Where we can find you, what's going on, what do you have coming up, anything like that you might want to talk about. But I wanted to ask you a couple of things about where you live. So, how far are you from the tour?
Uh, it's about 20 minutes walk to the top of the tour. I can see it from my kitchen window.
Far out.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do
So
you?
from my kitchen window, I've got the tour. From the window at the front here, I'm on the high street, and I've got this massive church, St. John's Church. And then from my bedroom window, I've got the view of the Abbey ruins and the resting place of King Arthur. I mean, you know what the place where I'm living is called, Todd. Uh, the house where I'm living is called King Arthur's Court.
Holy fuckamole, man!
And we have a round table here. We sit in circle around the round table every
Wow,
Wednesday night. You
wow.
couldn't make it up. You couldn't
No,
make
you
it up.
can't make this shift up, man. You cannot make this up. Beautiful. So, how do we get in touch with you? What's your website?
My website, Todd, is www.migueldean.net. So
Miguel
nice and
Dean.
simple. Yeah. There's lots of free resources, videos and blogs and podcasts and all that sort of stuff. And I would recommend one of my newer pieces is it's on the homepage, the Awakening of the Horn God. Who is the Horn God? It's a piece that a piece of prose that I wrote that's been put to music. That well, there's music behind it with me speaking, but it's
What's
activated.
it called? What's it called? The What of the Horn of God?
It's called Who is the Horned God?
Ooh, okay. All right,
Who is
got you.
the Horned God? It's on YouTube, but it's on my website as well. But
Uh,
that's activating a lot of people. When people are listening to that, there's interesting stuff going on.
what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Uh, I don't know, Todd.
Here, let me look it up real quick.
It's
Hang
just
on.
it's on the website. If you go to the videos and interviews page, that's the YouTube channel on there. It's probably just Miguel Dean, I would guess.
Let's see. What's it called? Who is the Horn God? Who is the
Horned
horn?
God.
Who is the horny God? I'm just kidding. Who is the horn God?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll have to look for it. I don't see it. But anyway, we'll go to the website and find it, and
Yeah, it's on the
I'll
home.
take a look at it. Who put it together?
Uh, I like work. I like getting young men to,
Yeah.
to collaborate with, do little projects and stuff with them.
Yeah.
So a young man who's here in Glastonbury, who's doing some really good. He usually does sort of house music. He's really sort of, DJ and doing his electronic
All
music,
right, man.
creative music. And I said, how about doing a bit of this sacred masculine stuff with me? And he was like, yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So it's really sweet. Yeah. The I mean, once you found my website, we're connected. But yeah, of course, I'm on Facebook, Miguel Dean Sacred Masculine.
Oh,
You
I
can,
just found it. I just found it, dude. Wow. Who put the imagery together with it?
yeah, that was just an image that found me. I would say. I mean, that is the horn god. That's my favorite image of the horn god. It's pretty powerful, huh?
Hey, there is a. In fact, this is where I got reacquainted with the parable that I brought up earlier,
Yeah.
the prodigal son. Uh, Guy Ritchie is on Joe Rogan, and the thing is, I just pulled up what is the horn god, and it pulled up right next to it.
Right.
So I know I'm supposed to tell you about it. It's 12 minutes. Guy Ritchie, you must be the master of your own kingdom.
Yeah.
And it's 14 minutes. I've watched it like 10 times, and I don't
Right.
watch videos, especially over and over. But and it speaks to the masculine,
Okay.
and it's I don't know. I'd love for you to listen to it and let me know what you think about it, because I'm still trying to pull the code out. But there's something in there about the masculine, the horn god,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's and I really don't prefer to, even in trying to understand something, to separate feminine and masculine. But there's something important that you've brought up, that you've shared with us today, that we're realizing in the now moment, that I think Guy Ritchie captures in this 12 minutes. And part of that is the story of the prodigal son, but
Yeah.
it's much more than that. And it speaks to this primordial power that you have talked about. It speaks to that, and it's very compelling to me anyway. So anyway.
Thank you, Todd. Look, bear with me 1 second. My computer's going really slow, but I'm just clicking on something because I think what you're talking about is the last line of of one of the pieces about the horn god. So let me just read it. It's very, very short.
Go ahead, man. All right.
Let me just find it on my phone here because my computer's going so slow. Okay, yeah. So the last bit is, the time is right. The time is now. It is the time of the awakening of the horned god. For without his blessing, a man cannot rest in his sovereignty, and she will settle for nothing less than a king to be at her side.
Fucking A, bro. Well, it's 5 minutes long. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna download it. I'm gonna put it in the Soulogy remix, because I heard the first part of it because it came on, and I can tell just from the energy. Very commanding. Yeah. There's a big thing too for me. It's like you knew that power wasn't gone. You knew you had to let it go, but then you get to the point where you go, I knew it. I knew that was the real me back there. But there's this step by step consciousness that walks with me that looked different in the previous, before I went through that space, that I might say is the ego or the shadow. But it's the one that has a big fat pie in its arms, like that vision of the mother holding the earth. And it's a big, giant, homemade humble pie with slices already pre-cut, just in case
Yeah.
I get too big for my masculine britches, but it is humility is really something that you can't say, oh, I got humility. It's just in the moment, because I could be humble right now, and I could have a couple of, energetic soulgasms because I accomplished something or did this or that, and I could be out of my humility in hours, in minutes. And so to me, it's an important part of the newfound, the new birth or rebirth power of the true divine masculine. And I got to say this too: this whole thing about androgyny, I think, is real. But as my beautiful bride said one time, she was incarnated. I'm incarnated in this body for a reason. And I can only speak for myself, but I feel like I'm here to be a masculine in balance.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think because of anything that has the addition of the physical, of the 3D, of matter, whatever you want to call it, because we've seen what happens out there. To be in a space where we can actually include that frequency into this vibration, this collective vibration, is it's beyond anybody. It's beyond the greatest geniuses, dreams.
Yeah.
We have no idea. We have no idea what we're getting into.
No. Yeah, keeps it interesting, huh?
Well, I know you're not online much, but yeah, let's take a look at that Guy Ritchie video and let me know what you think, and let's try to get together if you're up for it. I mean, no pressure, no rush, but let's try to reconnect in a few weeks.
Yeah. I will. I'll have a listen to that video, and I'd like that, Todd. Yeah. It's been really good to reconnect with you, and take the opportunity to say thank you to you and to Morgan for the work that you're doing. We all do what we can, and lots of little stuff coming together results in big shit going down, huh?
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding, right? We're one last thing. We have our first Soulogy Fest is end of May, right? And it's exciting. It's exciting for a lot of people. I'm glad. I'm really happy to see some of the but I laugh because you're right. They say, oh, I can't wait to see everyone. And I'm like, yeah, but you also got to be aware. Maybe it's that humility, right? That there's going to be triggers. There's going to be shadow energy. Our energy and our triggers, obviously, it's a gift to all of us. But yeah, we should keep that in mind. That we're powerful beings, and when we come together, stuff happens, and it's for the best.
And it's like you said, Todd, in a way, the more humble you are, the more powerful you get.
Yeah, and you can't fake it. You can't fake it.
Everything that the world's taught you, just do the opposite, and you won't be far off.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. It's the art of the reciprocal. Yeah. Love you, bro. Take care. All blessings to you and yours, your sons, and everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, love to you.